Hi, everyone. This is David, and welcome to today's live stream. Today, we're going to discuss how to please people. And the people we are pleasing are your professors and editors of those academic journals where you would like to see your byline. I apologize for the test warning that is now being activated in my town. It'll be over in just a second. We will follow the same procedure as we usually follow. I will first give a presentation on this topic, and then we will open it up for questions from all of you on what was presented, as well as any other questions that you have. Indeed, this topic that I'm presenting on today is a result of a question from last week's live stream. So I hope that this kind of feedback is not only helpful, but continues because it helps us answer needs of the community and to build that community into a stronger and stronger base of confidence is the key, confident as well as skilled writers. Okay, I see the alarm is over, so let's go ahead and begin. How to get published, really, this is a moniker that could also be how to please your professor, because in both instances, especially on the master's and doctoral level, you are writing academic prose that has to fit someone else's expectations. In the case of master's and doctoral students, those expectations are set by people who have published themselves and also people who are responsible for giving you feedback on all the different kinds of research writing that you'll be doing in your programs. So let's get started on this topic by asking, how do I get published, or how do I please my professor? The answer is simple. Write something an editor wants. Write something your professor likes. Okay, you say, well, that's awfully simplistic and maybe even glib. Can you give me a little bit more advice, please? Yes, but I want you to understand that at the base of everything that we talk about today is this idea of understanding your audience and then writing something that your audience expects and that meets their expectations, whether that be an editor, a group of peer reviewers, or indeed your professor. They're all the same. Okay, let's ask the question again. How do I get published? There are as many answers to that question as there are editors and journals and professors. Why? Because each exists in a set discipline. Sometimes the disciplines can be defined as a large circle, for example, environmental science. But then there are many subdisciplines within a larger discipline. Environmental science can also mean urban planning. So it's important to consider that each discipline and subdiscipline has its own vocabulary, has its own set of core concepts and common knowledge, has its own way of discovering, researching, and reporting, writing. With all those disciplines and subdisciplines comes many varieties of academic prose. There's also this idea of mission. Each journal, although it might be in the same field as another journal, each journal must define its own niche, its own mission, its own purpose. And the purpose, mission of one journal, its goal is to be distinct from all others. You can often read about a specific journal's specific mission or purpose on the opening or the frontispiece of that journal, where it will say this journal is dedicated to finding answers to such and such questions. Also, all of these journals have websites, and on those websites, not all of them, but most of them, you will find an about page or a mission statement page. And it's very important that you learn the specific purpose that that journal exists for, the specific mission that those editors have dedicated themselves to achieving. And it's going to be different from all the others. It's like their own research niche, if you will. Then there's the individuality and the idiosyncrasies of the various editors and peer reviewers, which change over time. Just as your professor has his or her own set of expectations, different editors will have different expectations. You know this as a student, that there's this getting to know the professor period where you learn what the professor wants and expects, how that professor wants you to write in certain instances. That's all a part of this publishing game, this game of writing to an audience. Okay, why am I interested in this topic? What kind of expertise do I have in this particular topic? Well, I served as an executive magazine editor and book editor at Rodale Press for 10 years before that company was bought by a larger company. So I have kind of insider knowledge on how publications are put together. And believe me, they are put together with a specific audience and mission and purpose in mind. I even wrote a book about how to get published. It's called the Freelance Success Book. Don't go out and buy it. Everything you need to know, I'm going to tell you today. And I also have a doctoral degree in composition and rhetoric and have been teaching writing and especially professional writing for over 20 years at the University of Maryland Global Campus. So I feel like I have a pretty strong background in this idea of writing for publication and writing for specific professors. So what is the problem that we are encountering? First, let me say that I have enormous respect for your professors and for all the editors out there. But let's talk specifically about your professors. They are highly accomplished people, often with an extensive list of publications in their field. They have achieved a high level of expertise in their specific fields. There is no taking away from that, and my respect for them is off the scale. However, those content area professors have not been trained as writing teachers. Unfortunately, for them and for many of their students, these content area professionals with such high degrees and expertise are put in the position of being a writing coach, of being a writing professor, and to analyze and to provide positive, actionable feedback upon students' writing. Unfortunately, most are not trained to do this. However, the teaching of writing, the teaching of rhetoric, composition, all of that is its own professional field. As I said, I have a doctoral degree in that field. There are many publications in my field for experts. So the problem is simply this. You have professors who are experts in one field, their specific content, who are being asked to be experts in a field in which they've had very little, if no training. That's the problem. I see it every day in my work at the University of Maryland, where teachers often come to me and say, here's a piece of students' writing, I just don't know what to say. And that is why people like me exist. I'm a senior advisor in the Effective Writing Center, which is a place where these professors and students come to. I'm saying this just to show you that this is a problem. And there are people out there who are geared and trained to address the problem. So, in this particular instance, one of the students who attend this live stream, hello, Haresh. Nice to hear you. I think you're referring to my audio problems from last time. Tabitha Swan. Well, thank you, Tabitha. I appreciate that very much. Just wanted to say hello and to see if the student who brought this up in last week was also here. He has given me permission to share all of this, by the way. But here is what the student last week came to me and revealed what this professor had said about his writing. He said, you're a doctoral student, but your writing is on a high school level. Actually, the professor said, your writing is high schoolish. Well, let's understand that this professor wasn't necessarily trying to be cruel. The professor simply did not have the training or the vocabulary to really help him or her analyze the student's writing and to help the student figure out what exactly was an issue that could have been improved upon. That's all that happened. And so the student did the right thing and came to me and asked for my help. So I asked the student to provide me a copy of the assignment directions written by the professor, and also to provide me any publications or links to publications where the professor had been published in. And he indeed did both of those. And here is what I found. This professor had published an article in a scientific journal called Architectural Science Review, highly respected journal, published in, I believe, Hong Kong, out of Hong Kong, but affiliated with several major universities in Asia. Highly respected. They do great work. And I did what's called a textual analysis on this professor's piece of writing. First, you need to know about what's called the Flesch Reading Ease score. And there you see in this professor's writing, the Flesch Reading Ease score was 14.1. Well, look where that is. That is down on the college graduate level. For the college graduate, the Flesch Reading Ease scale goes from 0 to 30. So this professor is right in the middle of the college graduate Flesch Reading Ease score. Notice that the higher the score, the higher the reading ease. So 90 to 100 is 5th grade level, 80 to 90, 6th grade, and on down to 0 to 30, the college graduate level. The next thing you need to know is the Flesch-Kincaid grade level. The Flesch-Kincaid grade level for this professor's writing was 17.0. Look at the little graphic that I just put up. Do you see where academic paper begins? It begins at level 15 and goes to level 18. After that, it is off the scale. So this professor's Flesch-Kincaid grade level score was 17, which is almost exactly in the middle of where an academic paper should be. So everything's totally on track here. Everything is totally on target in terms of being an academic journal article. Okay. Then I performed the same analysis on the student's writing. And here is what I found. Look first at the Flesch Reading Ease, 16.3, so a little higher, but not significantly higher. It certainly does not take it out of the 0 to 30 category. Hello, Hashi. Okay, you're welcome and you're welcome, Hashi. Thank you very much for dropping by. I appreciate it. What we were just discussing is we were comparing the textual analysis scores of these two pieces of writing, one by a professor and one by a student. You'll notice that the student's Flesch Reading Ease is very much right in the middle of the score that you would expect to see for a college graduate. And the same for the Flesch-Kincaid reading grade level, pretty much right where in the middle where you would expect. So what is the big difference really? The big difference is words per sentence. The words per sentence for architectural science review is 30.4 words per sentence. Look at the words per sentence for the student. Half. 15.0. That is what the teacher was talking about. When the teacher said, your writing is high schoolish on the high school level, I bet a big part of that statement that she was trying to express was that the student's syntax was more simple than would be expected for writing on the college graduate level. So I went ahead and looked at 5 other academic journals. 3 of them were in the same field of environmental science as the first one, Environmental Science and Policy, Environment Asia, and PLOS1, that stands for Public Library of Science 1. And then I also did a journal that's related to the environment, but is more in the sociology field. And then I did one journal just to get outside the field that is a medical journal, Journal of Autism and Developmental Disorders. But here's what we found in terms of words per sentence. Notice how all of the science journals have about the same number of words per sentence. Architectural Review, Environmental Science and Policy, Environment in Asia, PLOS1. The Sociology Journal has less, but the medical journal is even higher than the environmental science journals. That was interesting to me. And that 39.1 is a kind of somewhat significant difference. Notice that the reading ease, and let's remember what reading ease is, the Flesch reading ease. The reading ease is the same on all of them, except the PLOS1, which was off the scale. I probably need to run that again, but for some reason the PLOS1 was beyond 30. It was off the scale. And the same for the grade level. They're all about the same. The sociology journal is a little bit lower. That would be a somewhat significant difference. But the rest of them are pretty much in the same ballpark. So again, we're down to this one big difference here, which is the number of words per sentence. So I bet, well, thank you, Deborah. Yeah, I bet that teacher was referring to this criterion. Now, there's one other criterion that I want you guys to think about. Look at the article title here. Look at the difference between the student's title and the titles of the professional journals. What characteristic do all of the professional journals' titles have in common? They all pose a research question. Each of those titles tell you exactly what the research question is. Let's look at Architectural Science and Review. Let me make this bigger so you can see it. Nope, that doesn't really make it bigger, does it? Sorry about that. Let's read the title. I'll read it for you. Design for Climate Resilience, Influence of Environmental Conditions on Thermal Sensation in Subtropical High-Density Cities. You know exactly what that journal article is going to investigate and report on. It's going to investigate and report on the influence of environmental conditions on thermal sensation of people when they're in a subtropical high-density city. Indeed, that article investigated Hong Kong of the, if not the most dense city in the world, one of the most dense. And you could say the same for each of these. Remote sensing, application of Copernicus data for climate relevant urban planning using the example of water, heat, and vegetation. In other words, this journal is going to tell you how to apply and what happened when Copernicus data for climate relevant urban planning was applied using water, heat, and vegetation. And I could go on down the list. Each one of those, look at environmental science and policy. Embedded researchers as transdisciplinary boundary spanners, strengthening urban climate resilience. So in other words, what effect did embedded researchers have on strengthening urban climate resilience? You're going to find out in that article. But if you look at their article titled "The Student, Growth of Elderly Populations and Outdoor Thermal Comfort," you really don't know what the relationship is. You really don't know what is being investigated. You can get some hints, but the purpose of the title is to state explicitly. That's why journal articles are so bleeping long. Titles of journal articles have a job to do. Absolutely, Deborah. The first thing I would do, Deborah asked a question. Let me put your question up, Deborah. Deborah asked the question, would you take this approach when writing for a PhD? Absolutely. And this is the approach I would take. Find other copies written by PhD students in your school, in your department, in your discipline. You should have access to copies written by other PhD candidates who are successful. And you will learn everything you need to know by examining those models. Also, you should research and find publications written by the professors whom you are taking classes from. There's no doubt about that. I think that's what you were referring to. If not, let me know. One other thing that I want you to notice about this comparison: who is the only person who wrote an article by himself? In other words, if you're going to play in this playground, play on this pitch, then you need to get some co-authors. Excuse me. You need to get some co-authors. Look how many co-authors Toshi's teacher had. What, 6? 5. One author, and she had one author. She was the author, lead author, and she had 4 co-authors. Remote sensing, what is that, 10 co-authors? The lowest was a pair. Get yourself a co-author. Why? Because that's how it's done, and also you need them. What does getting a co-author mean for you as a student? It means getting someone else to read your writing for you and react to it before you submit it. That's what it means. And without showing your writing to somebody else before you turn it in, you run the risk of not really knowing how an audience will react to your writing before you turn it in. If you turn it in without letting someone else read it, you are letting the professor be the first person besides you to read your writing. That is a formula for disaster. So, students, get as many co-authors as you can, which means people who will help you read and, yes, edit your own writing. By all means, you guys keep on asking questions whenever you're ready. Okay, here is another issue, and I also think that this issue was a part of Tosin's professor's reaction. This is what happens. What you're seeing on the screen now is what happens whenever you turn in your writing without having it edited by other people besides yourself. This is what happens when you try to go it alone. No one writes perfect prose alone. Let me tell you, I was a magazine editor for 10 years. I had 7 editors working under me. Associate editors, managing editors, assistant editors, fact checkers, etc. It required all 7 or 8 of us, counting me, it required all 8 of us to read a story multiple times to find all the problems. That's just how writing is. And if I have to have 7 other people read my work before it is approved, then I think that you should have at least 3 to 5. Okay, I'm pausing here just in case there are any reactions to that. Is Toshin a terrible writer? No. Did Toshin write something and not let other people edit it? Yes, that's exactly what happened. Now, to talk, let me talk about one other thing in this words per sentence. How can you increase your syntactic complexity without violating your reading score, your ease of reading and grade level scores? In other words, you don't want to be like PLOS and go all the way off the scale. You want to keep your reading scores kind of right in the middle there. So how do you do that? You do it with what is called training in sentence combining. And there are some books that you can use, and I will recommend them in just a moment. And there are courses that you can take that teach you sentence combining. And we're going to get to that in just a moment. Deborah writes, let me put up Deborah's comment. I found that some colleagues seem interested in coming, but not wanting to put others on the cover. Well, in that case, I think I understand, because a co-author is one who participated in a meaningful way in the actual research. In other words, was behind the data collecting, the write-up, the design, the authoring of their initial draft. So commenters are not co-authors. Now, I was using the word co-author for students to mean peers who are helping you out with your assignments. But if you wish to publish something, Deborah, and in that case, the co-authors would be truly partners in the research and in the writing, not just commenters. I was probably a little clear or loose with my terms earlier, and I apologize for that. Brandon noticed an it is in the paper. Oh, you mean the it and the which that were a part of that other? I see what I think I know what you mean. It's are very much a part of a lot of academic writing, Brandon. The idea is to limit their number and to avoid them when possible. But it is not possible. I just used one. It is not possible to avoid all of them. Okay, you're welcome. Thank you, Deborah. So we are going to get to journal writing, sentence combining in just a moment. Some other ideas Before you go for that big journal in the sky article, it's important that you start out small to get your bylines. So you can write letters to an editor. You can write a critique of an article. You can write a book review. There are small, if you look in a journal, you can target certain departments or types of writing that are not full research journals. They're more like commentary, reactions, reviews, that kind of thing. I would recommend starting there to get your first bylines. And of course, before you do any kind of major research for a publication, I'm not talking about your schoolwork here. For publication, be sure that you have co-authors. You saw that list. Uh, Look at that list of co-authors. Academic journal editors are going to be looking for submissions that have co-authors. The editors will have more confidence in your submission if you have co-authors listed. So that's a very important point, as well as the point we were making about how to write your title. Okay. Third, it's critical that you study multiple issues of a target publication. In other words, you don't just write an article. That was the biggest problem I saw as a magazine editor for 10 years. They're called over the transom submissions, and they're simply something that somebody sat down and wrote. You can't do that. You have to write something that is targeted for that specific publication. Get used to it, because that is exactly how you should be writing your research studies for your professors and your courses. You should find out as much as you can about what they want in an assignment and write specifically for them, knowing their style, their preferences, their expectations. You never just write. You always write for someone. Here's a really important idea. Editors plan out their issues 6 months in advance. So if it was August, my editors and I were already planning our Christmas issue. The Thanksgiving issue had already been planned and assignments had been made. You see what I'm saying? The Halloween issue was already, all the stories were in, they were being fact checked. See what I'm saying? Editors work that long in advance. So often on these websites, editors will put out calls for papers, and that means they are planning for a future issue. Or you can just ask, what kind of topics will you be covering in future issues? And they will tell you. And of course, when you write the article, you know this already from your research. It's critical that you first do your literature review so that you can define a specific research gap, a place that needs your research in order to fill it in. Define that research gap, and that will make your article valuable. And for goodness sake, learn to write query letters. A query letter is where you ask an editor to, we can find my papers. Let me answer that in a second, Deborah. Query letters are letters, emails that you write to an editor to try to get permission to submit something. In a query letter, you are trying to judge the editor's interest. in what you are writing, the editor's interest. And if the editor is interested, then the editor gives you what is called a go ahead, which means the editor says, now, I would like to see what you write. I'm not saying that I will publish it. I'm just saying I'm interested in seeing it and possibly working with you on it. That's what a query letter does. And there are plenty of articles on the internet that show you examples of query letters and how to write query letters. Okay, what is sentence combining? It is simply the ability to manipulate, to use fluently 7 common sentence parts. And those parts are relative clauses, participle phrases, appositives, absolutes, prepositional infinitive phrases, noun substitutes, and subordinate clauses. Sentence combining gives you fluency, fluidity, in first knowing what they are and then using them in a consistent way that improves your syntactic complexity without losing your readability. Let me show you. Let's do a short lesson on relative clauses, okay? Very, very short, just for demonstration purposes. So I give you 2 sentences. The college honored the students. The students received straight A's for the semester. And I ask you to combine, using a relative pronoun, those 2 sentences. And so you find out what the relative pronouns are, who, whom, that, which, and you combine the sentences using one of them. The college honored students who received straight A's. The college honored students that received straight A's. There are different ways of doing it that fit your particular needs. You could also say the students whom the college honored received straight A's, or students that received straight A's for the semester were honored. So as you can see, sentence combining gives you a lot of tools in your toolkit. It gives you a lot of different ways of writing your sentences to fulfill your specific needs at a specific place in your writing. Then after the sentence level, after you've mastered that use of relative clause and pronouns on the sentence level, I would then take you to the paragraph level. So I would give you a paragraph that needs some sentence combining with relative clauses. Let's read this paragraph. Tears are nature's way to keep our eyes wet and cleansed. That sounds like a good sentence. They are actually drops of saline fluid secreted by a gland. Okay. But why do we shed tears when we are happy or sad? Emotional tears have long been a mystery. Such tears are unique to humans. Some doctors now speculate about chemical elimination. Now you can see it's getting choppy. Through tears, our body eliminates certain chemicals. These chemicals build up in response to stress. You see how it's really choppy through there? The chemicals, create a chemical imbalance. Wow, that needs some combining, doesn't it? And so you would look at this sentence and you say, wait a minute, this paragraph has only 8.5 words per sentence. It's got a flesh reading ease of 68. By the way, 68, I believe, is the 7th grade level. I think it's around the 7th grade level. It might be the 5th grade level. Oh, no, there it is. 6th grade level, 5.8. So that flesh reading ease score is about the 6th grade level. Okay, let's do some sentence combining. Tears, which are actually drops of saline fluid secreted by a gland, are nature's way to keep our eyes wet and cleansed. But why do we shed tears when we are happy or sad? Emotional tears, which are unique to humans, have long been a mystery. Some doctors now speculate that through tears, our body eliminates chemicals which build up in response to stress, creating a chemical imbalance in the body. Does that sound a little bit more mature in terms of its syntactic complexity? Yes, it is. As you can see, we've now brought it up to a college graduate level with we've now doubled the words per sentence, 17.7. The reading ease is down a little bit, down to 60, 66. And you see the reading level has improved from the sixth grade level to the 8.4 level, almost the 9. And then after you get finished with the paragraph level, you would then go to the essay level, where I would give you an entire piece of discourse during which you would have to combine sentences using relative clauses. So that's the presentation. I will go ahead and stop sharing the screen, and we will take your questions. Okay, Deborah Rose. Oh, wow, Deborah. While I was a magazine writer and a magazine editor, I published 500 or 600, maybe 1,000 articles. I don't remember. I do know that every issue for 10 years, I had to write an editor's column. So God, I think that would be 12 times 10. That would be 120 right there. Academic articles, I will have to dig those out in terms of their citations. I know I published in the Journal of Developmental Disabilities and some other places. I would have to dig those out. Oh, the title of my PhD thesis. Yes, it was called The Relationship Between Reading and Writing, a Guide for Content Area Teachers. That was a long time ago, Deborah. I got my PhD in 1981. That's 46 years ago. 44, something like that. Over 40 years ago. Yeah, I just gave it, Brandon. It's called The Relationship Between Reading and Writing, a Guide for Content Area Teachers. I doubt seriously if it's still available. It was written for high school and college teachers. Yeah. Deborah says, well, we put that up. Yeah, Deborah, you are correct. That was a long time ago. Okay. Oh, Tosin, you're here. Okay, you're very welcome, Tosin. The two things that you need, Tosin, one, you need other people to read and help you edit your writing, because no one writer can, with 100% accuracy, edit his or her own writing. That's a fact. You also need some sentence combining training. Now, a good book for sentence combining is this book right here. It's called The Writer's Options. It's written by, there they are, Max Morenberg and Jeff Summers. The original book that I used back in the 1980s was by Donald Dacre. And I think this is now the 6th edition of it. You're welcome, Deborah. Everybody's marveling at how old I am. So did you guys get the name of this book, The Writer's Options? You are welcome. Now, by the way, you can do a textual analysis on your own writing simply by using the tool, Microsoft Word tool. Let me pull up a Word document and I'll show you where it is. Okay. So I'm going to share this screen. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now. Okay, here is this is actually a query letter that I wrote to Kirsten, and she invited me to do a presentation to her faculty at Jack Welch Management Institute. And so I wrote this query letter. And so and here's what I would do if I were you. Once you've got that Word document open, you go to Editor, and then you look under Document Stats. And you should be seeing the document stats on my document. As you can see, my words per sentence were 14.5. My flesh grade level was 9.1, but this is a query letter. It's not an article. So be sure to do that to your own writing so that you get a sense of where you are. Yeah, I was writing more of a query letter is more of a marketing tool. You're kind of marketing yourself, marketing your ideas. Just a second, Rose, there we go. Okay, Rose. Okay. Let me answer Deborah's question first, Brandon. I will get back to yours. Deborah's question, how does this apply to public relations writing? For example, preparing case studies for a non-academic audience. It applies a great deal to them. When you're writing for public relations, you're preparing a case study for that kind of audience. Yeah, you definitely have to bring the flesh Kincaid all the way down. Remember, you are writing for general consumption now. And so you want to hit around, high school, freshman, college level. You also want to have a little pizzazz to your writing as well, a little sizzle on the steak, we used to say. But the same principles apply, Deborah. You study your audience. You would study other case studies that had been prepared for similar audiences. You would study what has been published and done recently, and then you would let those previous publications be your guide. Run a textual analysis on them, just as I did for my document. Copy and paste them into a Word document and run a textual analysis on them. But definitely study them. Okay, Brandon has a couple questions. Brandon, how is the flesh scale measured? And is it okay? No, it is. It's run by a formula, Brandon, and you can look up the formula for the flesh reading ease scale. It is it's a complicated formula that is based upon number of words, number of syllables per word, number of words per sentence, punctuation marks, and it has some other. It's a kind of long algorithm, but it is considered an objective analysis. It's been used by the U.S. It was originally used by the U.S. Navy as a way to author materials appropriate for sailors. And then it eventually went into more widespread use in educational environments outside of the Navy training programs. Brandon also asked the question, what's the difference between 0 to 100? And okay. The 0 to 100 scale, Brandon, is the flesh reading ease scale. 0 is like kindergarten level, pre-readers. And the scale gets more difficult as excuse me, I have it backwards. 100, I'm sorry, is the kindergarten level. And the reading ease gets more. Do I have this backwards, for God's sake? I've been dealing with this stuff. Let's reading ease. We'll answer your question too. We'll look and see if it has the formula in it. Invented in 1940 by Rudolf Flesch. Here are the formulas. Here are the formulas, Brandon. Am I sharing my screen? Let me share my screen so you can see them. Oh, thank you, Salama. Salama, you're so faithful. You've been to every one of these live chats. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen so that Brandon can see those formulas. Okay, Brandon, you should be seeing those formulas now. You were asking, darn, excuse me. There they are. Reading ease is just that. It determines how easy it is to read something. And the Kincaid puts a little bit of a finer point on it by giving a grade level. The reading ease does not give a grade level. It simply gives an ease. Okay. Other questions? Okay, Salama. I have a question about, put that in there. I have a question about theme of the story. So this is literature, Salama? I just want to make sure I understand what you mean by story. And this constant question for the English teacher, what that means. Well, first, let me make sure we are talking about a work of literature. If we're talking about a work of literature can mean many things to many different people. And we see this, I don't know, pick your author. Shakespeare, supposedly the greatest writer in English. Shakespeare's works have been interpreted in various ways over the centuries. He was a revolutionary in the 17th century. In the 18th century, Shakespeare was a learned man. It just changes upon the century. So is your teacher saying that you must discover a certain meaning in a story? Is that correct? Because you could do an internet search on the story and its theme, and I bet that if it's a well-known story, you would find no less than 3 to 5 different mainstream interpretations of that story. I've taught literature, and my position always is you can have whatever interpretation you wish, including its theme, as long as you provide a convincing argument. Are you running into a situation other than that, Salama? To get back to the Flesch reading ease, 100 was the kindergarten level, and it goes all the way down to 0. 0 to 30 was the college graduate level. And Brandon, those numbers, 100, 90, 80, 70, 60, they simply indicate ease. And the Flesch Kincaid translates that number into a grade level. Okay, other questions? We still have time left, so you guys feel free to ask your questions. In the meantime, I will have a drink. If you don't mind, I will mute myself in case you're wondering, that's cranberry juice. Well, I'm looking for other questions. I guess. Oh, here we are. Salama. Let me put this up, Salama. An ounce of cure. This story is very complex. The teacher required to give him theme and plot and so on. Okay. Well, why don't you look it up? And here, I'll do it for you. I've heard of that story. It should be relatively easy to find. Yeah, here you go. It's a story by Alice Munro. And I will share my screen. And you can find many interpretations of it there. Uh, Here we go. As you can see, Graduate Way, WordPress. Here you go. What is the theme of An Ounce of Cure? Loss of innocence, this person says. I'm sure you could find other interpretations other than loss of innocence. I don't know. It could be about substance abuse. uh, there's no such thing as a story having only one theme. So that's what I would do. I would read about what other critics have said about the story and kind of come up with your own, with theirs, keeping theirs in mind. So just Google An Ounce of Cure and you will be all set. Deborah asked, when is the next session? Deborah, we meet every Wednesday at 12 p.m. And if you look on my community page on my channel, I usually start posting about the live chat, usually on Sunday, and then do some different follow-ups between Sunday and Wednesday. Great, Salama. Good luck with it. So it sounds like this is a general education course for you, Salama. Because is your major literature? Or is it just an English class that you're taking? You wrote this, Salama. The story is very complex. I'm not sure I would agree with that. I'm remembering An Ounce of Cure and Alice Munro now, and I'm not sure it's all that complex. It's about a young girl with a drinking problem who's in conflict with her parents. It's definitely a coming of age story. Oh, it's just an English class. Okay. Well, have fun with it. It's always a great pleasure and privilege to have the opportunity to read literature as opposed to going hungry and looking for housing. We are truly privileged to have the educational opportunities that we have. It's a level 6 course, okay? So you have gone from beyond writing and speaking English to writing about literature. studying literature written in English. Good. Yeah, literature tends to have more complexities in its language than, say, a technical document. Poetry, of course, is the most complex. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is the top of the hour. So I will go ahead and end the broadcast while thanking you for your excellent participation and questions. It's always a pleasure and an honor to be with you on these Wednesday chats. And I definitely look forward to the next one. Okay, I'll see you online.